What Robert Saltzman is perceptions, feelings, thoughts, emotions, beliefs. I can't stand outside of myself and judge anything. This is it. What the caterpillar calls my death, the rest of the world calls a butterfly. Robert's experience is that Robert has to keep dying. You're just distracted from seeing this thing. It's very clear. The story we tell ourselves is really buffed up. If I could see myself without that story, everything would really be okay. But it's just scary. Because you don't know what will happen when you awaken. You don't know. In my case, I lost my art career. It was gone. It went away. I'm not sorry it went away. I don't really recommend this to anyone. If you are happy in the life you have now, don't try to awaken. You won't like it. It's only for people who really feel that something is not as it should be. Who am I? Who is this I that is dissatisfied? But once you ask yourself that question, it's a big question, and it may not end for quite a while, and you may have to go through a lot before you get an answer to that, if you ever do. I can't make you awaken. I can manifest that, manifest it constantly. And then when you start asking me about it, I can tell you what it isn't. And then when you come to me claiming to be awake, which is what happens, I can tell you, no, you're not. This isn't it. You may think it's it. You may feel good. You may think you're better than the people around you, but that's not it. What can be known and how can it be known? That's what each human being needs to find out, assuming that that person wants to be what we're calling awake. The secret is in there. If I could only decipher it and decode it enough. Really? You believe that? I'm not criticizing the teachers. They have a role to play, and the role to play is to keep you entertained so that you don't awaken. That's why people pay the money. They don't want to get into something really deep. People sitting on a stage describing how blissful it is to be awake. No, it isn't. They believe they're doing something good. They believe they have found something and they want to share it. And they're lying, but they're making a living. And I understand that because it's quite painful actually to see things as they are. It's not such an easy matter. We actually don't know what any of this is. No one knows how any of this got here. None of it. May call that not knowing God, but hanging a name on the incomprehensible does not make it real. It doesn't make it any realer than it is, and it doesn't explain anything. Nobody knows anything about how any of this got here, where it's going, what's it for, what it is. None of that. That's unknown. In the moment that one really understands human limitation and stops imagining that Ramana or whoever got it really knows, really knew, as soon as that fantasy, I call it, disappears, you are awake and you won't be going back to sleep anymore. A lot of people say they want to be awake, but they really don't want that. What they want to do is improve the life they have. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't criticize that. It's fine. If that's what you want and you know that's what you want, you won't become confused. I only have one question. What's wrong with now? What's wrong with waking up right now? Why should I give up this one life I have? Why should I spend this life seeking when I can live? And instead of dealing with my pain by getting on a path with a promise that if I follow this eventually, then I'll feel okay at the end. Maybe there's a way to feel okay about it right now. Maybe I've never even tried that. This is it. The next moment will be something else. It keeps changing, it keeps flowing. There isn't anything else. And yet I'm telling you that I have no questions and I'm satisfied. There's nothing else. I can't become something. That would never occur to me. This moment is so rich. This moment is amazing. It really is. There we go. Welcome everyone to meeting number 3 at the 2021 gathering at Todos Santos virtually. I'm Robert Saltzman, the author of a couple of books that most of you have read. And we're here today to discuss those books and all kinds of related matters. Burma Cassidy.
Start that again, sorry.
That dropped out?
That dropped out.
Wow. We're having audio problems with me today, which may be a relief to some of you. So I want to introduce the panel. We have two panel members who haven't made it to the meeting so far. I hope they will, but right now we have Naina Ghela, Judy Cohen, and Burma Cassidy along with me. Before I ask them to comment, I'd just like to comment briefly on something that came up late meeting yesterday. The question was put to me about ego. And I want to expand on that a little because there's been kind of an argument going on between me and another person for a long time about ego. And the word ego is simply the Latin word for I. And so this idea that someone can get beyond ego or vanquish ego is, to me, a very foolish idea. It's just another manifestation, because as soon as you say, I want to accomplish something, ego is there. It's as simple as that. And the idea that there's something bad about ego or something wrong with it is something also that I don't agree with at all. The ego is what we have in this life. And each one of us has a personal situation that we are forced to deal with, whether we like it or not. And so all these efforts to somehow as this person is like pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. It sounds good, but you can't actually do it.
Was that word transcend, Robert?
Transcend, yes, to transcend the ego. Are you really having trouble hearing me? I'm so sorry.
You're glitching out. There's quite a few periods of silence. So yeah,
these golden words are tarnished.
It's an outrage.
All right. With that, I'd like to ask Naina to read a letter that she has written, and we'll start there. Would you do that, Naina?
The letter? I'm not really sure which letter you mean, Robert.
I think that maybe that was Burma.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm confused. Burma, you have written a letter, and you'd like to read it.
Okay.
Proceed.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
You hear me? Okay. So here's some thoughts I've been lately chewing on with regard to popular teachings. It's possible I'm the fool and too self-centered to see the truth. So I say teachers claim freedom is being open, present knowing, happening choicelessly, no chooser or doer. And this state of freedom is final. You will no longer believe your thoughts. Is there such a thing as freedom? Who or what is free? Are humans ever free of programmed thoughts and conditioning permanently? For that matter, are humans ever free, period? I am skeptical of teachers who proclaim they are permanently free. How is this possible when change is constantly happening? I notice for me, suffering comes from not accepting what is. At the same time, I'm not choosing to resist or argue with what is. These teachers say you must practice watching how thoughts arise and take over. They vilify thoughts. They say that thoughts gradually, if you have been seriously vigilant in watching, you will be free. In this state of freedom, you will, quote, be nothing, have nothing, know nothing. The so-called me is gone. Teachers claim open, aware presence matters more than anything. Once you achieve this, quote, immaculate perception, unquote, you are free. Robert, you often say, snap out of it. Is there a choice? For me, this means to snap out of it, stop believing in happily ever after, and deal with life as it is. I sense dysfunction going on with these teachers, and for some reason, I'm not able to hone in on what seems to be this core issue. It's like trying on shoes that look great, but there is something off in the fit. Thank you, Albert.
Okay. Well, I would say that you find yourself in the position of the little boy in the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. And it's as simple as that. These people that call themselves teachers are in the spirituality business. It's a trade, it's a profession. And they need you to need them in order to pay their rent. So naturally, they have to hold something that you don't have, but they have, and you will pay them to acquire it. It's a very simple transaction.
Yeah.
Now, I also charged for speaking with people in my psychotherapy practice, but I was not claiming that I had some secret knowledge that this person could acquire by attending meetings with me. I find that to be mostly a scam. Now, I'm not saying there's no such thing as a teacher. There are teachers, but what a good teacher would teach you, in my view, is that you don't choose your likes and dislikes, and your likes and dislikes are what drives you through this life. There's no mystery about that. And we pursue it and try to have more of it. And we try to insulate ourselves from things that are painful or that we don't like. It seems very simple. I see it in myself from the time I wake up in the morning. I have this feeling of needing to pee. I'm not going to be able to lie in bed for another hour because it hurts. And I get up, and after that's taken care of, now I need the next thing, which is a cup of coffee. And the day goes on like that. It's a very natural process. And I see no reason to intervene in that process according to some kind of idealistic procedure. Now, it's easy for me to say that because I feel happy and I feel free. But for me, freedom, Burma, is not that I think my thoughts don't think, or that I should stop thinking. For me, freedom is whatever I feel now is unavoidable. Whatever I think now is unavoidable. And once having seen that this flow that we call myself is unavoidable, there's nothing to do about it except live. Live by live by one's own lights, not by what some teacher tells you, but you just live. It's really simple. You wake up in the morning, you didn't ask to be here. You open your eyes, the world is here, and so are you. And you just deal with it as best you can. And the idea that some expert can tell you that that's meaningless or that you need another approach to life, to me, is really a strange kind of hypnotrance. So when I say snap out of it, I mean notice. Notice that you are here. You're really here. The teacher doesn't know what that is. The teacher's not inside your mind. The teacher's just babbling about her or his own version of reality. I'm not saying there's nothing to it. Some of these teachers are smart people. Some of them are psychologically aware, but they can't fix you. No one can fix you. There's no fixing. This is it. See, and to me, freedom is and cannot be different.
You cut out. Could you say
I'll repeat that then. Sorry about the audio, everyone. To me, freedom is very simple. You understand that in each moment, what is and cannot be any different. So if you feel sad, you feel sad. If you feel happy, you feel happy. These tend to alternate, and I think we surf the waves, and that's about it. I don't know if that addresses your
Yes, I wanted to share. Last night I was up quite a bit and I did a lifetime inventory of all of my pursuits and adventures, and I got to really see deep on a deep level that I did not choose any of it. I really, really got it. I got that all the things that I had been involved with, teachers and traveling and living in different parts of the world and education and meeting all kinds of people, none of it was my choosing. I did the activities. I do artwork. I know I'm not the artist. I do the artwork, but it comes through me. I've had this all my life, and all my life I've been curious and a creative person, and I have some intelligence, and so it's led me into many different wonderful places. And now I am an old person. I'm 78, and I have a debilitating diagnosis that's going to lead me in a slow, probably difficult way, most likely. And so I get that I'm not the chooser. I sometimes hear people vilify the teachers. They're not the choosers either, are they?
Would you repeat the last thing you said?
Okay. Okay. The
Just
teachers
the last
aren't
few words.
the teachers aren't the choosers either, are they?
Of course not. We're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all different in the sense that we have personal lives, but the teacher is not inhuman or unhuman. The teacher is like you. The teacher has limited understanding. The teacher would be afraid if he or she had a debilitating disease with a bad diagnosis, just the way you are. No one can transcend this stuff. That's the stuff of life. We're mortal. We're animal.
So when you
We have an
say
animal
you're
being.
awake, when you say you're awake, are
Mhm.
you permanently awake?
It seems that way. I had this understanding come over me about yet, but that doesn't mean it never would, or that I'm saved from anything. I think my brain is degenerating slowly, to tell you the truth. I think I had a higher IQ 10 years ago than I do now. So I don't know that anything is permanent.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So nothing is permanent. So you feel that way because you're a couple of years older than I am. You're pretty well preserved, if I can say so. When we get to this age, when death is very close and it can't be denied anymore, and there's also the loss of functions and abilities that we once took for granted, which is my situation also, and yours, there's a great deal of honesty that can arise at that point. And when I say that I'm free, what I mean is that I'm honest with myself. That's another way of saying freedom. I don't lie to myself. I don't imagine that God is going to save me, or that some miraculous thing is understanding is going to happen that will remove the sting of impermanence and debility and all the rest of it. I'm free to be an old guy. I'm free to suffer. I'm free to be sad. Yes, that's what I call freedom. Now, I know that in the spirituality, there's this other kind of freedom that's discussed. And these idiots sit there telling you how blissful everything is. And I don't believe it. I think if you get backstage, as John Troy calls it, with some of these people, you'll see that they're just ordinary. They just have the same fears and desires that we all have. And freedom, to me, is when you understand, I'm not doing this and I can't fix it. It's all arising. My feelings, my thoughts, my emotions, my needs, my desires, all of this comes upon me like fate. And the freedom is not being at war with that. That's my experience. And that's what I've tried to share for the last 10 or 15 years. I kept silent for 20 years or something after I grokked this. And then a friend of mine, we had these discussions for a couple of years. He was a rather well-known Buddhist teacher. And he kept telling me, Robert, you really should be speaking to people about this. And I kept resisting it, but eventually he talked me into it. And I said to him, what do you expect me to do? Rent a hall and start speaking? He said, I didn't really know how to cope with it. And I started to speak to a couple of people and they seemed to enjoy it. So that has branched out into this thing that we're doing now. And I feel that I have come upon a kind of naturalness and self-acceptance. And I have no striving. There's nothing I'm trying to attain. And I think from a stance like that, it's pretty easy to help other people to see choicelessness. Which is what I'm telling you now. Burma, I don't think there's any choice. And when the teachers tell you, just stop thinking and everything will be all right, they're asking you to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, which sounds good.
I don't see how anybody can stop thinking.
Well,
I mean,
of course,
that's ridiculous.
Of course not. Sitting there for 5 minutes would convince anybody that you can't stop anything. Can't stop your thoughts, you can't stop your feelings, you can't stop physical sensations. It's all just arising. All just arising. And that arising, to take it to the next step, that arising is me. There's not a me to whom things happen. The happening and me is the same thing. What I call myself is this experience. There's not an experiencer separate from experiences. The experiences are me. It's all me. There's nothing besides some grandiose egotistical sense where you think you're the whole universe, as some foolish people imagine, but that you can't get outside of yourself. There's no way, there's no objectivity. There's no way to stand aside from oneself and observe oneself. That's a fantasy. And the spirituality people are always engaged in that fantasy. They really imagine they can watch themselves and analyze all that and figure it all out. But I think those of us who are more psychologically aware, and I think I'll bounce this off of Judy because she's a psychologist. If you're psychologically aware, I say, you realize that there is no objectivity. It's a fantasy. Yes, Burma? Do I get that?
I hear what you're saying. I think because of my curiosity, I have studied under so many different teachers and read so many books and been involved with humanistic psychology and, you know, Rolfing and Est and Rajneesh and, I mean, you just name it. And I get to a point where I say, this is just bullshit. This is just bullshit. And yet the curiosity in me just, I'm not doing it. I'm not choosing to be a curious person. I like to see things through and I dig in deep and I examine and I'm critical and I'm skeptical. And then I say, okay, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And then the next thing comes along and, you know, it's just like, I'm too old for this. I don't have the bandwidth of energy anymore to expend on doing this. And sometimes I stand outside of myself and I look and I say, oh my gosh, you know, what? I'm not choosing it. I know I didn't choose any of it. I'm not even choosing the words that are coming out of my mouth right now.
Yes, but calling it curiosity is a bit rich. I would say it's more a desire to be saved.
It's wishful thinking.
It's a,
You know, what Judy said yesterday hit a chord, that we move away from discomfort. We're always looking to help make ourselves feel better.
yes.
She said something like that. And, you know,
So jump in here. I know she had.
Robert, if I may just now,
Yeah.
before we get into that, it seems we're having kind of wild variations in our bit rate, so the stream is very choppy. You're getting some comments, so I don't know how much people are getting. I'm getting very wide variations in the speed, basically. So
I just had a good streak until a minute ago when you said let, and then they went quiet again. So.
Are you guys are any of you watching the stream also?
Oh no, can't see the screen. No.
Okay. Yeah, because it looks like we're having some issues there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, there's a comment there. Maybe on YouTube it's looking better. So
Looking better on YouTube?
on YouTube.
Okay.
So hopefully it's not on our end then.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, not at all. So Burma, I'm going to ask Judy now to jump in there and let's see her version of this situation.
So a few thoughts, Burma. I think that even if I give some open-minded respect to teachers and assume that they're not all scammers, because I really believe that many of them believe what they're saying and that they're not out to fleece everybody. I think there are a fair number that are, but I wouldn't say that it's everybody. And I think even there are many people who believe this kind of thing who aren't teachers at all, but who run around spouting it. I think that the spiritual world is full of wishful thinking and mythology and fantasy. And then you have, and the bottom line is this, the idea that we're in charge of things, that we're in charge of our fate, we're in charge of our thoughts, we're in charge of our feelings, and that if only we find the right path, we can make life be what we want it to be. We can achieve enlightenment. We can watch ourselves from the sky or whatever. As if there's two, there's the watcher and then there's me, the watched. I mean, none of it makes really any sense when you get logical. And I think that one of the very prevalent fantasies is the notion of freedom. It's very appealing to the human. Don't tell me what to do. It's a toddler. We learned this from the time before we're 2. Don't tell me what to do. I want the lollipop. I don't want the bath. And, you know, even if it was possible to somehow transcend this physical existence, there's still gravity. We're not free of that, right? There's still the need to breathe. We're not free of that. We're just not freaking free. And nothing on this planet is that kind of free. And so if we're going to strive to be free of thought, we talked a little bit yesterday about what if what we are is all of these happenings, like you just said, Robert. What if what I am thought, not the thinker? What if I am feeling, not the feeler? If I am thought, where's it going? How's it going away? And would I even want it to? So I think that it's, I mean, I really was amused yesterday and even after yesterday, because the comments kept coming and the private messages kept coming about the conversation about choice and free will. People really, 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 really want the idea that they're in charge and that they have free will. And this idea of this kind of freedom from your thoughts, it's very appealing to the mind. what is the mind? It is thought. How is it going to be free of itself? It's absurd. When you really follow it through, it's just completely illogical. This is not to say that people don't experience a certain amount of that state that everybody's chasing, that experiential state where they feel open and spacious and maybe even blissful, etc. But that's a state. How is that permanent? And even when you look at, again, I'm not a scholar, I'm hardly an expert on these kinds of things, but who can you point to who really doesn't have any thoughts anymore? And how are they not in a coma?
Yeah.
I mean, even Ramana would get mad if the rice wasn't cooked right. That man had thoughts, of course. So I don't even know that it's a worthy goal, let alone a possible goal. I mean, if what I am is thought, it comes, it goes, it changes every second, what needs to change it? Not me. So I would just say one more thing for you. If I was in your shoes, if I were saying the things you're saying and you asked in your letter, if you find yourself what you call curious, but it's driving you a little nuts, then fuck it. You know, if the curiosity brings you, if it's fun, great. If it's peaceful, okay. But if it's starting to feel like, wait, what's real? What's happening? What's right? That's not fun or peaceful. And life does not need that from you. So I realize that you can't make yourself not chase it, but you can maybe notice once in a while, oh, I'm trying to figure out who's right and if this is right and if this is possible. And at some point, it's not fun. So why bother? Life goes on, even if we never answer these questions.
Mm-hmm. So, Judy, I just want to clarify one thing that you said. I am not saying, and I never have said, that all the spiritual teachers are scamsters. A lot of them are well-intentioned people who imagine that they're helping and want to help.
Right.
What I say is that they're magical thinkers, and there aren't any spiritual teachers that I know about who would tell you that thought is just as you have laid out. Any ordinarily conscious person understands that thoughts do not go away. They circulate around. We're living in a world of thoughts. Each one of us is. And anyone who says that that can be stopped, if that person believes it, that's a self-hypnotic trance that person is in, where they only imagine that they're not thinking.
Agreed.
But they're still thinking, yes?
Agreed. You have to have it. The thought that you're not thinking is
That's
a
already
thought.
a thought. That's right.
Yeah, it's just not possible to exist without thought. It's not possible to pee, like you said, Robert. It's not possible to drive on the correct side of the road, tie your shoes. We need it. You know, what's the rush to be rid of it?
Mm-hmm. So the thoughts that Burma was talking about, which I understand totally, is that once you feel that you have some kind of illness that can't be cured, that's a recurrent thought, and it's a nasty one. It's really a hard thing to live with that. It's like living with some pain, physical pain. It's there, and you can't make it go away. And I don't think anyone can offer you, Burma, a way to make that go away. What I call freedom is understanding that you have no choice. If a thought comes up, you think it. I think Judy was right. She said you can see that this thought is not really helpful, and maybe you can not, maybe it's like a loose tooth that you keep playing around with your tongue. You can say, I must stop this, or an itch that you keep scratching. You might be good, or I'll do something else with my mind. That you might be able to say, this isn't doing me any good, and maybe refrain from playing with the loose tooth or whatever it is, maybe. And if you can, that's great. I would never discourage anyone from trying that, but there's no fix. Once you get the death sentence, we're all under a death sentence, but there comes a time in life when that's very clear and can't be denied anymore. Once you get that, there's no fix. I mean, it's no fun.
It's true. And I do have times when I can say, hey, there's no point in thinking about this, drop it, snap out of it,
Yes, that's what I mean by snap out of it. That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
You say, I don't have to be here. I can just be here. I can be in my life, not in this,
right.
Because the illness thing is a fantasy. Not that you're not ill, but the idea, oh, I'm going to lose it, and then what will happen?
Right.
We don't really know that. I mean, you could get hit by the bus tomorrow, and then all those worries about the future will not have.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So here we go. So that's living in the moment, understanding that you really don't have a future. We all can't help it. We do project into the future. I imagine myself this whole guy who can't walk, yes, but that right now I could be dead tomorrow. I could be dead tonight. And it's good to remember that.
Don't die yet, Robert.
Oh dear.
Don't die yet?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll try not to. I'll do my best not.
And Burma, I just want to say one more thing about that. You may or may not be able to snap out of it.
That's right.
And, okay, and both are okay.
Thank you for saying that. That's beautiful. Thank you. That's beautiful. Really.
That's right. Very well said, Judy. That's the point. Whether you snap out of it or not, you're here. That's life.
Thank you so much. Really.
Well, there's some wisdom here. It's very beautiful. Very beautiful. So, Naina, I'd like to hear from you, please.
Sure. First of all, I just want to say, Robert, thank you so much for the opportunity of being here today. It was by a stroke of luck that I happened to be here, because what had happened was you'd invited people on the 23rd of November, I think, to sort of just because you wanted to test out the system, and I'd volunteered for that because I thought it would be a lovely opportunity for me to have a conversation, because I'm such a, should I say, a fan? I mean, I read your stuff all the time, and it really speaks to me, and it really appeals to me. I've also, thanks to your page, I've also heard Judy, and I think that everything that she says, also really resonates with me. So I'm really, really happy to be here, because on that particular occasion, on the 23rd, I wasn't able to get through because I was waiting in the lobby, and I wasn't let in due to some technical issues. So I'm really happy to be here. And just really to say that, everything that we've just spoken about, the letter that, Burma, wrote, I think it's very relatable, because the questions in there are really, the questions that most of us have had as well. And I relate to that. And I think everything that Judy just said now, and you've just said, is also very relatable, in the sense that I've been a seeker for most of my life. And I think that, most of my seeking was really to do with the alleviation of suffering in a way. And I think that, you know, as human beings and personalities, and I think that also related to our conditioning, the religion that we grew up in. And, you know, I grew up in the Hindu religion, which we know that it's very steeped in belief systems, dogmas, rituals, massive number of traditions, which are never actually questioned. People just kind of, you know, take for granted loads of belief systems. And I grew up with all of that. And at the, you know, at the heart, none of it actually sat well with me. Yet, you know, I think that, you know, for the want of wanting to belong in things, I sort of kind of, so followed all of these things. And I never really stepped back to question religion and things as such. And I think that most of my life, I'm now 56, and I would say that probably, you know, for the last 30 years or so, I've kind of been a seeker. And I think that at some of the worst times in my life, I've kind of, accidentally came into non-duality, and then kind of that became another hook to kind of, go towards in order to become free from the suffering. So it's like that personality that just wanted to overcome the bad things in their life and the suffering. And that kind of went on for very many years. You know, it sort of started with attending, you know, the Tony Parsons meetings. And the thing about people like Tony Parsons, and I do love him, and in the early days I loved, you know, his work, his teachings and stuff, because I think that they appealed to something in me, because there was almost a sense of he's got something and he's free of a suffering in his life because he's realized something, and then I want that. And so I think that I became hooked on his teachings and the teachings of some other teachers. And then a few years down the line, I realized that things weren't any different in terms of whatever I practiced, that they didn't actually alleviate my suffering in any way. The suffering was still there. And I think that finally, when I read your book, again, it was just through non-duality groups that I came across yourself, and I read your book, The 10,000 Things. And I can't tell you what a relief it was, because in your book, you talk about this is it, as in, with all the messiness of human life. And I think that that's, for the first time, I think I heard that there's no escape from what there is, in terms of, you didn't create your suffering, you didn't bring it about, it just happened. And there's no escape from that. So it's really about stepping back, putting on your big girl's pants and basically just, being with it, because there's no escape from that. And I think that for the first time, I understood what freedom was, because wherein before I was looking for freedom from, it now kind of came to a point when I realized that the freedom that we actually seek, or, from a personal perspective, the freedom that I was seeking was really to be okay with what there is, and not to be escaping from who I am, what my life had in it, how bad things were, but actually accept that that's what I am, that's what my life is, and all of it is okay. And I can't thank you enough for that, because I think that from that day onwards, I haven't been to any non-duality meetings, and I'm not looking for something other than just being with how things are now, how I am, and embracing all the human messiness, because that's what life is really about.
Well, thank you so much. What a testament. I'm so glad that my book was helpful. And what you're speaking about now, Naina, is what I realized this 30 years ago, it's more now, that I was here, but I wasn't making myself or the world. It's just here. Robert is here, the world is here.
Absolutely.
I'm
And
not
I
here.
feel, I feel like I've made that full circle back, because I think that the mistake with following, non-duality teachers and the spiritualists, it's like they're looking for something outside of themselves. It's like a personal experience of something that will alleviate their suffering. But then actually what's happened is, making that full circle and coming back to where I was and just being okay with that. So is that, that's kind of my interpretation of your, what you speak of, what Judith speaks of. And, and that is where I found my freedom, if you like, because that's where the freedom was, because this is it.
Well, I think that Judy and I probably agree on that point, that there's no escape hatch. I mean, we're here and we can cook up all kinds of distractions and theories and escape into that. But basically, we're here. And, you wake up every morning, you have no choice. You're here and you have to deal with that. How you deal with it may be a kind of choice. There may be some choice on that level. I'll do this, not that. Maybe there's some choice. That's a deep question. But you did, as you said, Naina, you didn't create your suffering. Suffering is part of our animal existence, a lot of suffering. Life is very difficult, extremely difficult. Most of us don't even remember how difficult it is because it's like a burden that we've been carrying for so long that we're accustomed to it. And we forget that when we were children, someone loaded a bunch of bricks on us in a backpack and said, now you're going to carry this for the rest of your life, Bobby. See, that's how that happens. And waking up, carrying these bricks that someone else put there. What I call waking up is you just realize I'm carrying these bricks that mommy and daddy and the culture put on my back. Maybe I don't need them. Maybe I don't really need to be religious, for example. Or maybe I don't really need to be famous or proud of myself or accomplish all these great things that people are telling me to accomplish. Maybe it's okay to just be here. That's what I mean. Yeah. And that's what I mean by freedom. It's okay to just be here.
And I can totally relate to that. I think I've actually carried those bricks on my shoulders for most of my life. And, it just feels really lighter to let go and just be with what there is. And I think that a lot of seeking is very much fear-based as well. Fear of, the implication of things going wrong in your life, of feeling that you've, a feeling of failure, of not kind of meeting the expectations of family, society, parents, friends, and that is a massive, massive, sort of burden. And I think just a general sense of belonging, and I think that especially if you, the kind of person that I was, the child that always kind of felt that she didn't fit in, and felt a little bit odd because of how I viewed things and how I saw things. I think even at a very young age, I remember around the age of 9 or 10, I'd be thinking about things like, how was this world created, and if I didn't exist, would the world still be there? And I think that those questions were really quite profound. And I think that and I mean, those thoughts were always in my mind, like, of things about how is the world created, and what is the meaning of life, generally. But then as you grow up, and I think when you're that young, the conditioning really takes over, because like things that your parents believe, and things that your family believe, and things that, and then if you don't see things in their way, or the way of the society or the community immediate of you, then it's almost like you're not going to belong. So you made an outcast. So I think that that is what also happened to me, that I spent years and years kind of just beating myself about things that didn't go right, or having thoughts that didn't fit in with the religious beliefs, because I was questioning everything, because people, society would say, oh, do these religious things, because if you don't, then bad things will happen to you. And I was that child, that person would say, well, how do you know that bad things will happen to you? And of course, that was never kind of, taken very well. And I think that those are the things, because when your suffering is so bad, you're even willing to try those out, and kind of try, all the fasting, read all the religious scriptures, do all your prayers, go to the temple umpteen times, like in a month, you try all those things. And none of that helped to alleviate my suffering. And then kind of those things just fell off, because they didn't meet with the expectations that I was, because I was told, if you did this, then you will get what you ask for, or your suffering will go away. And it didn't happen. So those things kind of, fell off. But I can see how they, like, non-duality becomes a hook, because even when you go to these meetings, an example, so Tony Parsons would talk about, like he would say, oh, you're not going to get anything from this meeting, and all there is just this. And then he would kind of make these gestures, all there is this. And it kind of left you thinking, what is this? Is that something that I don't have and I don't understand? And if I go to the next meeting, maybe I will understand what this is. And I think what he was referring to is probably, the energy, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what he was referring to, but there were so many times, when I would keep going back thinking, if I just went back to the next meeting, I will get what he's talking about. And I didn't. And then, all that fell off when, I came to read your stuff, and you said, well, no, life is just actually very simple with all its messiness. And people don't want simplicity.
Well, people, there's two things that I observe driving people to be spiritual. One is what you're referring to, which is you're suffering and you would like to stop suffering. The other one is what I call the fear of missing out, which is there's this other place I could be in if only I had the key. And Tony Parsons has the key, or whoever it is. And I'll just keep going to these meetings. And if I go enough and I try hard enough, I will get it. And then I won't. I want. The problem with Tony Parsons, if I can critique him for a moment, I will critique him for a moment. When someone says all there is this, the word this is what linguists call an indixical, meaning it's a pointing word, it's an index word. But what it points to is completely undefined. It's a word like me or London. It doesn't really mean anything unless what does it mean to say London? Is it the way of life there? It's undefined. And the word this is like that. It means nothing. All there is this. Oh, okay. That explains everything, Tony. You see, these people, and he may be one of those people that Judy was referring to who means well. Probably was, probably is. Still alive? Yeah. But this guy, I saw him once on a video where he talked about this whole life he had led, where he bought Ferraris and became fabulously wealthy and all the rest of it.
We're losing you a lot
lost
at this
you.
point,
Yeah.
Robert.
I broke up.
A lot. Yeah, we're losing great
All
chunks
right,
of what you're saying.
I'll stop speaking. Someone else take over.
Well, I mean, I don't know where you were headed there, Robert, but I would say Tony Parsons is, I understand the appeal, and I don't have any problem with what he says. There's nothing I disagree with that he says. I can go there. And in many ways, full on agree. The thing is, you can see the appeal, especially to somebody who's hurting, of not existing. You can see how lovely that sounds when the sense of existence that you might be carrying around is painful. Please take this from me. This is one of the things that people often say, and I think actually somebody may have said this to you yesterday, Robert, either in a comment or maybe in your nighttime meeting. I don't know. But what if this is painful because this is awful? Some version of that. It's like, I don't want this to be it. This sucks. And I'll hear that, for instance, if I'm working with somebody who's depressed. Well, this is it. You're telling me I may as well just go kill myself. This is something people say. And so you can feel the appeal of this isn't happening. This isn't real. You don't exist. It's like, oh, yeah, yay. The thing is that it's theoretical. And how do you live? How do you live? And I think what a lot of in other words, if you don't exist and you're not here and there is no self and all of that, these are things that I've said at various times. But then life goes freaking on. And what is that that's alive still? And how do you, one of the things that I think the spiritual is everything is either or. You're either a self or you're not. You're either thinking or you're the witness, but you can't be the witness and the thing being witnessed. So there's no room for the word and in a lot of those scenarios. And so am I Judy? Of course. Am I also not Judy? Yes. Can I be both? Yes. Can I experience a sense of what you called, Burma, permanent awakeness, and also watch Judy get pissed off at a cousin who insists on buying diet yogurt when I asked for whole milk yogurt? There's a whole in joke there, sorry. But I mean,
immaculate perception.
I mean, can I both be Judy and not Judy? I used to, me and a million other people, used to hear Byron Katie say, I haven't been angry in 26 years. And I would look at her and I'd say, by most of our normal ideas of what anger is, you look like an angry lady sometimes.
Yes.
And it took me a while to figure out that it's both. It's not that the Byron Katie never gets angry, but at the same time, she is aware of or has access to or is connected with, I'm going to use words that are awful, but I don't know how else to say it. She is connected with that part of her or that sense or something else that is not angry. as an example, years ago, I remember having a fight with my then boyfriend, and we hardly ever fought. In 20 years, maybe 5 times. And this was one of those times. And I'm standing in the living room and I'm yelling at him. And I remember thinking, really, Judy? Really? You're going to take a stand on this nonsense? This is, go on ahead. So there was the anger, and also not anger, that was perfectly fine with this. Both. And I think that the cut and dried, one or the other of whether it's Tony Parsons or anybody else, makes it difficult for makes it difficult for people. They feel like they have to know and choose almost. So am I supposed to never be angry? What for? Why would we even want that?
Well, because anger is painful. Very
It's
painful.
also luscious and delicious. I mean, if you think about some of the conversations that have gone
How
on
the
with-
fuck can you say that?
right? Think about just some of your conversations online, right? There's a love it. It's both.
Judy, I think this is a good segue into the body and how people separate the body and the mind. And I've heard so many people say, I'm not the body. I'm not the body, Oh,
And I've done that. I could go there easily. But that doesn't make the body disappear.
right.
And that doesn't make, so this is a place where the word and, or the word simultaneous, or the word both can serve, I think. If I can stand there in the middle of my living room and yell at my boyfriend, and also watch that happen, which one am I? Am I the yelling one? Or am I the watching one?
It's not, it's all you.
So, am I the body standing there with its mouth open? I mean,
It's part of it.
part of it.
Yeah. It's all part of it.
You wouldn't be able to yell if you didn't have a body.
You wouldn't be able to think, feel, see, live, anything. We are, these things are needed. We couldn't be without them, until we're dead. And the idea that whatever that is that said to me, again, I apologize for this language, whatever that is that said to me while I was yelling at my boyfriend, okay, if that's what you want to do, really? Is this what you want to do? Does that die? Is it biological? Is it tied even to the body?
Well, you really had no choice, did you?
Well, there's no question, there's no choice. But when people talk about I am not the body, I get that. But again, I think and or both or simultaneous can make a lot of these questions that a lot of people have a little easier to settle into, because I don't think that it's necessary even, we've made such a religion of how we feel. And there are all these processes and programs and methods about turning our attention to how we feel and feel it and listen to it and find out what it's trying to tell us and experience it, and fine. But is that all there is? So I just think the word "and" can serve when there are these questions.
I have a question. If I if it's okay. People who say nothing ever happened, there's only now. Nothing ever happened. It's all in the past. If it's not actually happening right now, then it didn't happen. It doesn't exist. So when people say, you know, talk about their traumas from their childhood, it's discounted because it's not happening now. It's called a story, and it's not actually happening now. So it's discounted. And I find that to be very off. There's something very off about that. And I hear people saying it a lot. Well, it's not happening now, and there's only now, and you can only live now, and nothing ever happened in the past, you know.
So I think there's, again, some, I don't know, I'm assuming some people say things like that, but I many times have shown people that their idea of a traumatic past or whatever is a mental image happening right this second. Like if you think about a traumatic moment in your life while you sit here in your chair, it's not to discount it, it's to get real. Because that mental image of me when I was 5, it's not even about did it happen or not. But if we can't see that we are sitting in a chair, essentially hallucinating and watching mental movies when we talk about the past and trauma, etc., if we can't see that, we can never get over it. It's permanent until we can see the actual literal woman in chair daydreaming. And
but would you deny it happened like you talked about?
No, there's no need to. But you don't even know. There's no point in denying it. But in reality, you don't really know. No, there is so much science about the inaccuracy of memory. Tons. Most memory is inaccurate. Everybody believes that they remember accurately, but there's no science to back that up.
Okay,
So,
I can understand the mind and mental things recreate and selectively recall. And when we tell stories, it may be very inaccurate, and 3 witnesses watch the same event and have a completely different interpretation of what actually happened. But would you deny that the Holocaust happened? Would you deny that 9/11 happened?
no, but who does?
Well,
Can you, I mean, who says 9/11 didn't happen? I think you're misinterpreting what they say. I could be wrong, but I
think they're trying to say it in the context that you are saying it, in that it's not actually happening now, it's a memory. And the memory,
what?
The memory is not actually happening.
The memory
it's not the actual event.
The memory isn't even legitimately accurate.
Right.
So while I understand that your audience, Robert, is probably horrified at this point. This is something where I definitely vary from what most people say. I'm absolutely a heretic in this regard. But I've just found that there is such a worship of the past and trauma and pain and a reverence that locks in pain. It doesn't set it free. It locks it in. And I mean, I'm just remembering when I was in my 20s, and I lived in New York City, and I was seeing a therapist, and I was going 3 times a week because I was so full of suffering for most of my life. And I went through for a number of years while I was seeing that therapist, I didn't wear mascara because I was walking around sobbing all the time. I would leave my office and I'd walk through the streets and I was just always crying. I was always going over my past. You can do that in New York. You can walk through the streets crying and nobody pays any attention. So did that set me free? No, it just immersed me. It immersed me in a pain I didn't even want. I understand this is scandalous. I don't know, and I'm not expecting you to agree. But what I would put out there is that if there are any people listening who are finding that they've tried the usual approaches to past pain, there's no value in saying this didn't happen. So let's go with that your memory is trustable. But where do you go with it from there is the question. And it's possible that approaching past pain and trauma from a different point of view might take you to a different place. So it's not necessarily about denying it, but it's also not about worshiping it either.
Mm-hmm. Robert, do you have anything to say?
We're left with his, what do you call those? Something of the dead. There's a name for those things. I don't know.
Where is Robert?
He may have stepped away. Oh.
Did somebody, was I actually missed?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I don't think my audience was horrified, Judy. I agree with you. Burma, it's not that the past doesn't exist. Obviously, there's an edition of the New York Times from 1945, the day I was born, June 10th. I've read it, you know, all that exists. But the point is that you can't change something that has already occurred. You can just deal with it in one way or another. And I think what Judy is saying is, if you make too much of it, it will never go away. It'll be that you just keep picking at it and it can't heal. If you just understand, I don't really know what happened. I know what I remember, but my memory is extremely impaired. In fact, there's some research that shows that eyewitness testimony is the worst kind of testimony, not the best. There's a lot of research that indicates that when there are these psychological experiments I've seen where the teacher will do something, wear some kind of fake nose or something and walk into the room and the students don't even notice it. Or that's right in the present. That was 10 minutes ago. Something that happened 50 years ago. It's probably by now been processed and reinforced and made over so many times that it's inaccurate. The other thing is that things that feel traumatic, that's a judgment. We don't know. I walk in on my parents having sex, let's say, and everybody says, now that influences your sex life for the rest of your life. Really? I don't know that. You see, we don't want to be sold on this. We don't want to be pathologized and made to feel that we're somehow wounded. I mean, life is difficult. Yes, we're all wounded by life, but I don't know if walking in on your parents really does screw you the rest of your life. That's an idea. So I don't know where I'm going with this.
It's just that our ideas about the past and our ideas about trauma, we're also, this is a common religion also, the idea that what happened in the past is formative and has created what you are now. This is very common. Again, I've probably lost everybody with even bringing this up as a potential thing to question. but it's as if the past or our ideas about the past or our ideas about what's happened become locked in there in some closet, unable to ever escape. And if that's the case, then nobody would get over anything. So, there's also, as we're living our lives unintentionally and unnoticed, we come to conclusions as the mind or the brain starts to make sense of things. It starts connecting dots. So years ago, I was working with somebody who was telling me how when she was 9, she was convinced that her parents wanted to kill her and that they were trying to kill her. She was absolutely convinced of this. And I said, well, you were 9. They could have snapped you like a twig if that's what they wanted to do. You were nothing to them. You were a tiny little kid. If they wanted to kill you, why didn't they? So, but this child, honestly, they could have. So but what happens is that our minds put things together and they try to, it explains things. That becomes a memory. This person was absolutely convinced this was a true story. It just didn't make sense. So, and these are parents who took the kid to the dentist, took the kid to the doctor when she was sick. It didn't add up if they wanted her to die. So the mind creates explanations for things, and then we live out of that stuff for, forever. But if we go back to it and honor it, where can we go from there? I mean, okay, even if it was true that your parents are trying to kill you, where do you go from there? So there's
Judy, can I chime in?
Sure.
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, are you saying that sometimes the trauma of the past, people as personalities become identified with that? I think that's probably a good word. And I think that what I understand you are trying to say is that when a person does that, they lose the sense of fluidity to life, that things are just kind of come and go and not kind of attach, because when you identify with it, you're actually attaching yourself to something, and then it becomes a part of you, and then it never goes, and then
it can't go anywhere.
And then you bring it up years later and you still traumatized because you've never let go. But then to say to someone let go is not something that they can because it is not under their control. But I think that when someone listens to you, they might it might strike them, and they might actually realize the fluid nature of existence rather than something. And even when you give that explanation about it's an image that's occurring now, so it's not something that is a part of you, it is just something that is appearing as it will disappear. So then,
and it's harmless, as it's if it's an image happening now, you're in a chair, you're seeing your 9-year-old self, you're seeing the parents supposedly wanting you dead, but none of that is actually happening now. And so there's you get the opportunity with a clear head, actually, for a moment, to notice what the safety of this actual moment. There's no parents here. And so
that's a really good point.
We're not bound. Whether you call it a story or whether you call it an actual past, it doesn't matter. It has no power. It's and this is not to say, snap out of it, or to say get over it, but seeing the safety of this moment. It's over. Parents are dead. Nobody's trying to kill me. I am watching a mental movie. There's so much freedom in that because it's truer.
I think I also see Burma's point, that I think that there are loads of spiritualists and teachers who will actually deny that,
Yes.
you know, if something happened in the past, it didn't actually happen. And it's
Yes.
almost as if they kind of offer a practice, you know, so that every time, perhaps even if that thought came up in your mind, you'd be saying to yourself, it shouldn't be there. And I don't think that addresses
That's
it.
not productive
And
in
I
any
think
way.
that is the denial part of things, which is actually harming, because then you're not seeing things as they are, you know, like you're not. So again, I think that is, you can become hypnotized in that kind of teaching, because I have friends who will talk like that, and they will say things like, you know, like if a memory of the past which is painful comes up, and if one cries, they will deny the fact that that moment is painful. They'll say, no, but you know, this doesn't happen, and it's silly that you're even crying about it. And I think that is where I believe that the spiritualists are not right, or people that teach are not quite right, because they're denying something, and I think that's more harmful.
And it's just not necessary.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
and
that's
it,
exactly what I was referring
Yeah.
to. Yes, it's gaslighting people.
That's right. And I think it's very, you know, you can get hooked in that, and you can actually get caught up in that, and you can actually beat yourself about it, because every time then those thoughts come up where there is pain, you're not addressing that, because you're kind of, you know, thinking it shouldn't be there. So that's actually, you're attempting then to escape it, which completely defeats the purpose, I think. And I think that I understand that, because I've been there, because that is the thing about some teachers, which you know, was there, which kind of didn't sit right with me, because I was never free of that pain. And I think that there's actually freedom in just feeling that pain and then letting go. And I think that that's probably where the secret is, that you're actually feeling it to the fullest extent. And in fact, when you understand this, really, if you really understand the word of, you know, so Robert and, you know, so Judy, and correct me if I'm wrong, it actually gives you the freedom to feel things a lot more fully, because you're not denying any of it. All of it is embraced, because all of it is it, because that's what is there in your field of experience. And what else can there be other than that? And if you think that there's anything else, again, you're in the realm of fantasy and imagination immediately. So you're already out of what is, I think.
I think
Am I
for me,
correct?
I think for me, there's less attention given to feeling it. It's also, there's not attention given to not feeling it. It's just, again, from what I understand, is heretical to so many people listening. For me, the question is, it's just a feeling, and it doesn't need to be revered, honored, kissed, or ignored. It's just a happening. But I think that what could be a guide for people trying to figure all this out is anything, to me, that indicates that there's a right way to live. There's a right way to think. There's a right way to feel. There's a right way to look at your past. There's a right way to be in this moment in relation to the past. There's a right way to think about what you are and what you aren't. And anything that goes in that direction is screwy, in my opinion. And so, you know, a feeling arises, there it is. Is it wrong? Of course not, because there it is. Does it tie to the past? Who knows? A lot of us believe that it does. Does it not tie to the past? But I would say that you can't, even the idea that you're supposed to get over it. You're supposed to not cry and not be sad, because that's a right way to live instruction. And it's screwy.
Yes, totally. I think I see that, because again, that's about holding on to something, isn't it? If it's not about so letting go, because if something comes up and you're holding, and if it's a part of your personality, then it kind of that is screwy, because you're not seeing it for what it is, because feelings, emotions, thoughts, they're constantly coming and going. And I think that really sometimes I think that the secret to this is really about seeing that everything is just letting it's kind of allowing the letting go of sort of that, rather than creating an identity out of that.
For sure.
And I think
if
that
you
people
can let it
definitely,
go,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
people can't always let it go. And
Yeah.
so I think what can help, because even letting it go becomes an instruction for a right way.
That's
And
right.
I think whether you can or you can't, it can help a lot of people that have experienced what they would call trauma to notice their legitimate, literal, actual safety right now. Whatever did happen or didn't happen, whatever it felt like, whatever it feels like when you think about it now, in this moment, are you safe? Can bring a lot of relief where people are very bound to pain.
Mm.
So I will shut up at this point, because again, my point of view on this is not the norm.
I appreciate it so much what everyone's sharing. It's beautiful, really, and it's not too much of anything from here.
And I totally appreciate it as well, Judy, because it really resonates with me, because I think that really is the key to that lighter feeling, because you're not keeping the bricks on your shoulders, as Robert said previously, because I think that keeping it, because I think that certain personalities probably hold on to the victimhood.
Absolutely.
And that kind of becomes a big part of themselves, and they don't want to let go of that, because I think, again, for the fear of, if that went, what would be left behind.
Right. And that's terrifying
It is,
to many people. Like,
yeah.
without, at least I know who I am. It's the devil you know kind of thing.
Absolutely.
It's still a devil and it sucks, but at least I know it.
Yes.
So
I think
yeah,
people have a huge fear of the unknown, of the uncertainty. And I think that, again, that's the very reason why words of Robert have also resonated with me as well, because he talks about the free fall of things, because really that's what it is. And that's absolutely terrifying to people. Not knowing is a very terrifying thing, because people want to know, people want to be in control, they want to experience, they want to hold on to themselves, because they don't know what letting go of themselves means and what it actually means. And I think that that is something I speak from personal experience, is that when letting go happens, you are still here.
surprise.
Well, so I'd like to remind people who are on the live stream that if you want to participate in this by asking a question, we have
a comment from somebody. It's not so much of a question, but a comment, if you want to put it up there.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is from properly.
He says, I feel as though when I remember something and have a certain association with that memory, such as that made me happy or sad, that association changes that memory in subtle ways that I can't notice. Well, it's like a game of telephone. Memory is like a game of telephone. You remember the last time you remembered, and that's a memory of the time before. And pretty soon the whole thing becomes whipped up into a froth, and there's not much there really to remember. This is not my been to extensively all kinds of psychological tests.
Tons of research.
Yes, tons of research. Our memories are creations more than they are records of anything. We create them. The one that you mentioned, Judy, my parents wanted to kill me. It's possible that that child was unwanted and felt that, but it wasn't homicidal.
Right. And the thing is that there's no way to know now. The parents
That's
are
right.
dead. She can't go back. She's
Yeah,
way
she's
older
dead.
than 9 now.
Mhm.
And even if it was true, and the odds are small, but even if it was true, now what? How do you go on? Even if that happened, where do you go from here? It's not necessarily possible to just drop it or just snap out of it or just not be attached. It may not be possible to do, but you can notice the safety of now, the literal, actual safety, and give it some attention instead of all of the attention going to the story and the pain and the idea of what happened. We pay no attention to the safety of the woman in the chair here.
Is there any value to history? I mean, what is history other than stale stories or something?
But we love our stories. I mean, what makes a movie good? It's a good story. What makes a book good? It's a good story. We adore stories. I don't see why we need to be without them.
Hmm.
But if we can just, even just for a tiny bit of balance, also note, again, there's that also word, that and word instead of one or the other. If we can just for a moment literally notice actual safety. Safety is what people who have experienced trauma are seeking. And wouldn't it be something to notice it's here?
Hmm.
Well, so I'd like to ask Naina a question, since we have a
Right.
Hindu among us. I'd like to ask you this question. You were talking about getting involved with non-duality teaching, but isn't non-duality a very big part of Hinduism?
Yes, I think it absolutely is. But in the most part, I think most Hindus have not much understanding of the Advaita Vedanta part of Hinduism. So they're very much stuck in the traditions, in the customs, in the belief systems, in the rituals. And I think that all of that, in my opinion, is geared towards the betterment of a personality, of an of being a kinder, more compassionate, better person than you already are. And I think that most, like most of my friends and family have absolutely no idea what Advaita is, basically, and the notion that a separate personality does not exist is not something that a lot of the Hindus that I know want to entertain. And I don't think that there's any, I mean, in my immediate, so friend circle or family or friends, no one, I mean, even just yesterday, I met up with a friend and she considers herself very religious. They have this, like into idol worship and things. And I was trying to explain a little bit of non-duality to her, and she was in complete like, no, that's not something that she was interested in, because of the sense of personhood and letting go of that. They're just not open, or they won't entertain that, because it's all about being this wonderful person. And I think that a lot of religion is, well, a lot of Hinduism, or people that I know are like that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that does. I think the same is true of Western. I'm cutting out. I think that's also true of Western religions. A Christian will say, "Not my will, God, but thy will," and then go ahead and try to get what she wants or he wants.
Exactly.
So So we're all a bunch of hypocrites, we humans.
Yes.
We have a question from Carson Boyd again.
Carson Boyd, what would you recommend to clear this? I have a recurring tangle of memories which come to me.
Oh, shoot.
Callousness.
You cut out again, I'm sorry.
Okay, this is terrible.
I have a
I'm the only one with
recurrent
that.
memory.
God is angry at me. I have a recurring tangle of memories which come to me. We're hearing this now?
Yes.
I have a recurring tangle of memories which come to me that collect around my being treated with harsh callousness. I notice how this impinges on my present enjoyment. What would you recommend to clear this? Well, what would you recommend to clear it, Carson? Nothing to, I have nothing to recommend. I mean, you have these memories and they're there. So you have to make what you make of them. There's no, this is a really difficult point. The idea that someone else can suggest to you how to fix this problem. It's your problem. It really is. And what I say, I mean, I have this generic advice, which I've given for years, which is you have to chew up life bite by bite, swallow it. You have to chew up your life bite by bite and swallow it. And sometimes you have barely enough saliva to get it down. And that's
I
my
love
real,
that expression.
that is my actual experience. It's my personal confession. I've had times in my life that were so horribly painful that I could barely fucking stand it. And so how am I going to give you advice, Carson, about your traumatic thoughts or callousness? You have to swallow it. You have to chew it up and swallow it.
The thing too is that assuming your memories are accurate and that how you remember it is what happened.
Well, yeah, we did that one though.
I don't know, but what I'm saying is assuming that,
Yeah.
because I know Carson from the work of Byron Katie. So obviously I'm assuming Carson has done the work of Byron Katie on this stuff up the wazoo, I would assume. And so the question then is, whatever you've tried, whatever you haven't tried, assuming this has happened, the question then becomes, now what? And that would be a question for you, Carson, to, let's say you're right. What now?
Well, that's essentially what I'm saying, Judy.
Yeah.
The ball's in your court. No
Yeah.
one can fix that for you. We each have our own problems that we have to deal with. And actually, unless you pay a therapist or something to sit there and listen to you, or someone dearly loves you, you're not going to get much help. And that's just a fact. We're all in this alone in a very essential way. And yes, Burma's nodding here. You see, that's when we understand that, then we stop imagining that there's this other place I can get to that fixes it, because there isn't. We're all in this place that we're in right now, and that's all. And there's no help exactly. Yes, if somebody likes you or you pay someone to do so, they will listen to your story and they'll commiserate and maybe try to help you, the doctor or your best friend or whatever. That's all beautiful. But then the best friend has another agenda, and the doctor visit is over, and there you are back on the boogie street again, and you're just alone there. And that is the fact. And you see, I think that a major problem that we all have is not being able to accept how alone we really. No one will ever totally understand you.
Yeah.
No one will ever totally understand you. You could talk to me forever about your life, and I still will not really get it. I won't even know really where the pain is. You can tell me about it. I can find an analog within my own experience and then maybe understand a little bit about it. Like Burma, when you were saying that you were diagnosed with a degenerative disease, I understand that because I was diagnosed that way 10 years ago. It's been in remission now for a while, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
Once you get that diagnosis, it snaps. It does have a tendency to clarify matters. Let me put it
Yes.
that way. Yeah, you right?
Oh, good. I mean,
Okay.
the clock
Well,
is ticking.
Yes. So that's it. You see, so you know that. And now if some younger person, let's say a 30-year-old, comes to you and is worried that some cosmetic problem she has gotten a little worse, what are you going to say? Oh, gee, I'm sorry that your eyebrows grew in a little too thick or something. I mean,
I would
we
hope
each
to
have our
be
own, if we can.
loving and caring, but I understand there's a
Well,
ranking of importance about life, and
well, you're as loving as you are.
Mm.
You can't pull love out of your ass. I mean, it's there or it isn't.
Yeah.
You see
You can
that?
choose to love.
Yes, I choose.
Sorry.
This
Can I
is,
say something?
oh, go right ahead.
So I think that any question that proceeds with how to is in a way a moot one, because that presupposes some sort of control, doesn't it, over the outcome. And it's kind of, and it's almost like you'd be saying, well, you can overcome this by this, but that's not the actual experience of any person. That the actual experience is that we actually have no control over anything that happens, because we all know that if we had any control, most of us would not have experienced the trauma that we have in our lives. I mean, I'm currently going through some really difficult times, and trust me, if I had any control, I'd not be in that situation. So I think that it's, I love that expression of, Robert, which he really says it brilliantly, that you've just got to, chew up, I don't remember the rest of it, and there's barely enough saliva. And I think that is the gist of things, that's just how it is. And most of us are not ready or willing to do that.
You have to chew up your life bite by bite and swallow it.
Exactly.
And sometimes you have barely enough saliva to get it down. See that?
And people just are not wanting, you're breaking up.
I had a bunch of pain medication, and I was calculating how much of that I would need to take to end my life.
Wow.
And whether I would ask my wife to put a plastic bag over my head to make sure that the job was really done properly, and all the rest of it. That was chewing it up. That was the saliva I had at that moment. The thought of suicide helped me to swallow those moments. So, when I talk about how happy, really true. That does not, when I talk about how happy I am, which is really a fact, that does not mean that there are not these horrible moments of suffering. I mean, I think it was Woody Allen that said life is either the horrible or the inconceivably horrible. It may not be that drastic, but he did have a point. See, so I think when we understand that there's no insurance policy that's going to make everything just fine forever, then we are free. That's what I call freedom. When you just accept the situation difficult. You're in a body that, well, you're not in a body. I don't like to put it that way, because then people have this fantasy that there's a little soul. This is my meat suit, and the soul is. I don't buy that bullshit. But this body cannot last, and probably when it stops lasting, myself will go away. Now, I don't know that, but that's my assumption, and I think there's good evidence for it. And so that's hard to. I call myself that I love so much, and I'm all concerned about what it's like and whether people will appreciate me or not and all that. It's all kind of vanity. It's a kind of vanity. And what I'm saying is, if you get beyond that vanity, I find there's a great deal of enjoyment in just being in this moment. I'm having a great time right now. Really. I mean, this is beautiful for me. I'm not in a bed with my broken back. I'm not in pain. I have no doctor's appointment later in the day. Groovy. I mean, so, hey, enlightenment, if I can call it that. I don't, but it's a matter of reducing expectations. It really is. It's a matter of just reducing expectations and accepting what's right there on the table in front of me right now, moment by moment.
I think that can even go.
I don't think there's a big secret there. I'm not saying you can just decide to do that. It's not that simple, but that's the idea. The work, you know, the hell with Byron Katie. The hell with her. I think she's full of shit, basically. I think she's a salesman who's practicing psychology without proper credentials, to tell you the truth. But what I feel about this is feel what you feel.
Okay.
If you understand, this is terrible, right? This audio thing, we'll have to solve that. If you understand that you're going to feel what you feel, and there's no way to intervene between me and my feelings, they're the same thing, then it just flows. I'm in this flow, and that is me. And then there's no big secret. So you might not like it. You might not like to be in bed with a broken back, but really you didn't cause it and you can't fix it.
And I think that that's the guide that's the extended answer for Carson, bed with a broken back, but he's carting around feelings that he doesn't like. And the thing is, there they are.
Yeah.
Now, you know, so the evaluation of those feelings as bad and as needing them to be gone, that's the place, those are the expectations, that's the place that, you know, if I was Carson, I would start, you know, okay, I have feelings. So whatever caused them, if I'm right about the past causing it or not, here they are. I don't like them. Okay. And can it be okay that they're there? And that would be a starting place if I was Carson. Because it could be feelings you're experiencing. Maybe they're just fine. You don't have to like them.
What I was saying, Judy, is that you can't do anything about your feelings.
No. So
feelings arise. What I'm saying is, from my point of view, as I see it, there's no space between myself and my feelings. There's not like this outside force that can intervene and witness my feelings. See, I understand that people imagine that their way to then intervene and manage your feelings. But I don't believe that. When I really look at myself, I don't see that. I understand people believe in that. They believe in God too, but I don't really think that there is such a state of objectivity. If you have feelings and then you feel there's me over here that can fix the feelings, that's also a feeling or a thought. And it's all one. This is the non-duality part. It's one wave. See, it's one, there's no dissecting anything. We only imagine that we can. But what we really are is this, as Tony would say. See, it's just, there's not another Robert or a little Robert and Robert that can say, well, Robert has these feelings, but et cetera, et cetera. And I think what I call freedom for me is seeing that there's nothing to be done about anything that you feel or think. It is what it is. In the next moment, you'll feel something different. And the moment after that, you'll feel something different. And this will flow until it doesn't anymore. And that's life. If that sounds simplistic, I think it does to many people.
Is that nihilism, Robert?
No, it's not nihilism. Nihilism says nothing matters. I don't say that. A lot of things matter to me, many things. I'm actually a loving person. I have many things that I love. I love photography. I love my animals. I love my wife and my children. I love my friends. Ricardo's here. I love him. He's great. We're having such a good time doing this. See, that's a nihilist says, this is all nothing. Nothing matters. But to me, it all matters. I'm not saying it's not the same thing.
No.
I'm saying that I'm not saying nothing matters, Burma. I'm saying there's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. My feelings and thoughts and actions are all of a piece. It's like, I'll give you a metaphor. I used to be very crazy when I was young. I liked risking my life. I used to do all kinds of bizarre behaviors, crazy shit. I mean, really crazy. So one day, I was down in, and waves were like 30 feet high. And I was on this big rock overlooking the thing. And for some reason, I just jumped in. And here I am. And these things, okay, in that moment of being in that water, I had no idea how I was going to get out again because it was all rocky shore. And I was totally powerless. I was just at the mercy, see? And that is what I feel about my thoughts and feelings. Exactly, no different. Make my thoughts. I'm not in control of my thoughts. I don't make my emotions. I don't whip them up. I can't whip them up. I could pretend like I could be an actor. Oh, it's so wonderful to see you. But yes, you can do that, but that's not how you really feel. What you really feel is not your doing. What you really think is not your doing. There's not a little thinker in here. See, that is non-duality. That's my version of non-duality. It's just one thing. It's all this. It's all me. And there's no me outside of anything. No, that's a very unpopular point of view. The spirituality people hate that. They'll babble about non-duality, but they won't ever experience any. They'll talk about it. And a lot of them, Judy was saying that maybe some of my audience here won't like what she's saying. I have an audience that doesn't like what I'm saying. They got some Facebook page where they take me to task every day. They call me a narcissist and all this kind of weird shit because they don't like what I'm saying. It's that simple. People don't like to be told how powerless we really are. We can't manage our lives. We can. I can make toast for breakfast or something. That's very nice. Maybe I can read about eating better, or I can go out for a walk because I think exercise will help. That's all good. But you can't fix this. You can't fix what you think and feel. That is completely untouchable. There's no, yes, you get this, Burma. See, that if you get that, that's what I call freedom. It's not that attractive. No wonder people don't really like it. No wonder they don't like it.
This is not what I want.
Yeah,
I want bliss.
This is not what I signed up for.
No.
I'm reminded by, a quote by Nisargadatta. I'm not, sort of much into his quotes, because I think they get misquoted and misinterpreted. But I think that if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he said that the problem with us humans is that we want to keep the dreams we like, but we don't want the ones that we don't like. And again, and also in the words of Jiddu Krishnamurti, and I think that this is something that I really like. Again, the quote, which is that the thing about me is that I don't mind what happens. And I think that that's the problem with most people, is that they don't like certain things and they want to change that. And it's like, it's not something that you have control over. And there's no prescription for that, is there? On how to change that.
Well, that's the point. We want what we want, and we don't want what we don't want. And so the wanting and not wanting feels like a disease. It feels like something that needs to be cured, and it can't be cured. You want what you want, and you don't want what you don't want. They're part of being human. When a baby is born, it immediately wants to suck at the breast. And we want to suck at the breast for the rest of our lives. What that breast is changes. We become more sophisticated. Now I want to suck at culture, or I want to, whatever it is. And then the things, yes, you see, it's so, to me, this is very simple. This is very simple. That's what I mean by awake. The whole thing just simplifies. It's not like you're better than anyone, or you suddenly. It's not like now I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm not one. I'm just a person who accepts his lot in life as a human being. It's that simple. It's just a human like everyone else. Same deal. We're all in the same boat. It feels different depending on one's point of view, but we're all in the same boat. And what happens is you get older, or you have an accident, you die. It's burial at sea, baby. They just throw you off the boat and the boat continues on, and that's life. And as soon as we accept it, as soon as we accept that, we're free. And it doesn't feel that great. That's the truth. Freedom is not like this wonderful thing where suddenly life is a party and I want. No, you can't just do whatever you want. You're going to do what you must. And most of that is programmed. Partly by your upbringing, but mostly because you're an animal with a DNA that carries all of these instructions and forces certain behavior, like sex. No one teaches you to move your pelvis. It's not something you learn. That's programmed, deeply programmed into a human being to act out that behavior. And most of us end up acting it out at one point or another. I know I have. And you feel things about it. Maybe you feel guilty. Maybe you feel it's wonderful, but you can't program those feelings. They just are what they are. You can blame your parents for putting you on a bad trip about sex or something if that's what you feel, but you can't fix it. It just is what it is. And so there's all this guilt and shame. People came to me discuss their guilt and shame with them, but I couldn't take their guilt and shame away. How could I? I can't even take my own away. It'd be great if I could, but I can't. It's just there, see? And this is personal confession that I'm giving now. It's very personal. That is why, although people keep telling me that I'm some kind of spiritual teacher, I know I'm not. I have no secret at all. You can come to me for some teaching. I have nothing to tell you. Nothing. Nothing. But I'm free. So I too people want to put me in this teacher role. The confusion is you think that those of us who find themselves liberated in this way can teach you to be that way. And that's not true. And the ones who claim to teach you that way aren't free. That is my observation. They're not free. They're hypnotized, self-hypnotized, or hypnotized by Byron Katie or whoever it is who isn't free. And I think Mr. Krishnamurti you mentioned was free in that way. And others. And those are the people that influenced me. I listened to what he was saying and I said, yeah, you know, that makes very good sense to me. And you listen to it long enough, and then it may have an influence on you, but that's all you can do. No one can fix you. You can't fix you. Well, I've gone, what a rant.
It's a good one.
Question from Lisa too, from the chat.
God, I'm embarrassing myself ranting like that. I think that recognizing my powerless, my inner state, frees up the psychic energy to take new actions, which invites a fresh inner state. Would any of you find that is true for yourselves?
Can you
Okay,
read
I'm
it
gonna-
again, Robert? Because I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it again. And then I will not answer this. I'm going to take a break from ranting. So Lisa Matt, who will be in tonight's meeting, says, I think that recognizing my powerlessness over my inner state frees up the psychic energy to take new actions, which invites a fresh inner state. Any of you find that true for?
Look, just
That was okay? Okay. Who would like to address that?
I'm going to bow out because I'm not sure what psychic state means.
And I think we've beat powerlessness to death. You know, in our conversations yesterday and today, not saying that Lisa isn't asking something right or not, but I think that there's, we've talked about, there's a kind of peace or a kind of relief in seeing that we're not the boss of things and that we are powerless and or helpless. And it feels surprisingly peaceful, actually, once the tantrum is gotten over. What do you mean I'm not the captain of my ship? Once we get over that, it's pretty peaceful. And I do agree. Again, I think it's less, you know, am I feeling a feeling I don't like? Am I powerless? Am I attached? Am I identified? Is less helpful for my own clarity than I am helplessness. I am this feeling, I am this thought, whether I like it or not. And for me, that takes me someplace different. If that even answers the question, I don't know. But I mean, I certainly, you know, I don't see how, I don't have any argument with what you said, Lisa. So Robert,
May I chime in?
yeah, I just want to say, I think I'm going to have to sign off again in a few minutes. My energy just is I'm recuperating from a nasty sickness, and I think I've used up what I've got.
Well, you need more crack cocaine.
Do you have any? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think that I'm fading. I'm sliding deeper and deeper down into this chair.
Well, Judy,
Oh,
thank you so much for participating in this. You've added so much to this gathering for 2 days now. It's been very generous for you to share yourself and your time in this way, and I really appreciate it. You bring a great deal of wisdom to these matters, and I'm an admirer of your way of being. I really
Thank
am.
you, Robert. It's been great fun. Thank you for inviting me. It was lovely to meet all you guys. And
Thank you so much.
Judy, thank you so very much as well. I think I've gotten so much out of this meeting, and thank you so much for your very candid, very simple expressions and relatability, and your insights. They've just been fantastic. Thank you.
You guys
so very
are
much,
lovely,
Judy.
and thank you. And also hi to the people out there in the world who are hearing anything I had to say and gotten all pissed off about it. I'm cool with that too. So I'm sending you all love, and have fun.
I hope you
Bye.
feel better soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye,
Take
Judy.
care.
Put the comments back up if you will.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We're at 2 hours now.
Okay. Leo Carbaugh, you said, damn, Robert, you're making me feel like a square hearing that story. I'm gonna have to step up my game. What story is that, Leo? I'm kind of curious.
I think it was the one about the rocks and the rocky shore.
Oh, yeah, well, I was young and crazy back then. So I survived. A lot of people take drugs and everything when they're young. I was more taking risks was my drugs more than the chemical stuff. I like to drive a motorcycle like 150.
No helmet, I guess.
Stuff like that. No helmet, yes, no helmet, of course. But you know what? If you drive that fast, the helmets won't really do much good anyway.
You don't want to survive that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I wanted to survive in those days. That's what it boils down to. So I don't know. Is there anything left now that Judy's gone?
I'm ready to call
Robert,
it a
sorry.
day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Burma and Naina, thank you so much for participating. It was great to hear from both of you.
It was
Naina,
wonderful.
Naina,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your appreciation of my work, Naina. It feels really good to hear that something that I've written is helpful. It really, that's very heartwarming. I thank you.
Thank you
that.
so much, Robert. This has been a wonderful thing to do. And thank you so much for putting this together.
Yes, your generosity is remarkable, Robert. Your time and openness and compassion and love, it just comes through so beautifully.
Oh, thank you, Burma. I don't have anything better to do. I'm just an old retired guy living out in the sticks.
I can't think of anything better to do.
Yeah, I can't either. That's why.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing yourself in the way that you do. It's just
Bye-bye, people.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.